fast to www.pastorpaulgold.com. Hey, have you taken a good look at the banks lately? On the surface, everything seems fine, but there's a whole lot more going on underneath. It's like looking under the hood of a car and finding a mess of broken wires and parts. The parts are loans for homes, cars, and those credit cards we all use. They're hitting record highs. It's kind of scary when you think about it. Why risk your money for a tiny 5% return when things are so shaky? This is where Noble Gold Investment can come in and help. They're like that friend who knows all about keeping money safe. They suggest gold and silver, oldies but goodies in the finance world. Plus, they got a sweet deal on this right here. 1/4 of an ounce gold standard coin. They'll give this to you for this month. 1/4 of an ounce of gold. Pretty cool, right? Well, if you're curious, just give them a call at 877-646-5347. It's just a chat, no pressure, and they'll help you figure out if gold and silver is right for you. Go visit them at www.pastorpaulgold.com and take the first steps toward a safer financial future.
On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin embarked on a brief flight aboard a supersonic bomber as part of his pre-election campaign to project strength and confidence within Russia. This symbolic act served as a deliberate reminder to the West of Russia's nuclear capabilities. Lasting just 30 minutes, the flight involved the wide-wing Tu-160M, also known as the White Swan in Russia, with the capacity to reach the United States carrying 24 nuclear weapons. Russian state television showcased the 71-year-old president climbing the stairs beneath the colossal warplane, one of the world's largest and heaviest, as it took off from an airfield in Kazan, which is located east of Moscow. The Kremlin shared a video capturing Putin in the pilot's seat during the flight, DNYUZ reported. Upon landing, Putin expressed satisfaction, describing the experience as leaving a positive impression on him, and commended the newly modernized bomber for its reliability. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, informed state television that Putin's decision to take the impromptu flight was made during his visit to an aviation factory in Kazan, where he had inspected 4 modernized Tu-160M bombers. Throughout his more than 2 decades as Russian president, Putin has gained a reputation for engaging in calculated publicity stunts aimed at portraying him as a robust leader of a formidable nation. Alabama has formally requested the state Supreme Court to set a date for the execution of death row inmate Alan Eugene Miller, utilizing the method of nitrogen hypoxia. The filing, submitted on Wednesday, follows Alabama's recent use of nitrogen hypoxia in the execution of Kenneth Eugene Smith, marking the first application of this controversial and contested death penalty method in the United States. Both Smith and Miller were originally slated for lethal injection, but Smith's initial execution was marred by complications, leading to the cancellation of both executions. Initially scheduled for September 22, 2022, Miller's execution was halted due to the inability to complete the process before the midnight deadline. Subsequently, Miller filed a federal lawsuit opposing death by lethal injection, the method initially intended for his execution by the Alabama Department of Corrections. In his lawsuit, Miller recounted a distressing episode during the first attempt where prison staff struggled to find a vein, subjecting him to needle pricks for over an hour and leaving him hanging vertically while strapped to a gurney, CBS News reported. In September of 2022, the state's highest court ruled that Miller's execution must proceed exclusively through nitrogen hypoxia, a decision eventually accepted by the Alabama Department of Corrections after earlier contesting the court's injunction. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall in Wednesday's filing, expressed the state's readiness to execute Miller through nitrogen hypoxia, asserting that, quote, "it is once more the appropriate time for the execution of his sentence." Miller, who is aged 59, received a death sentence for a 1999 workplace rampage in suburban Birmingham, during which he killed Terry Yarvis and Lee Holdbrooks and Scott Yancey. Alabama, along with Oklahoma and Mississippi, is one of 3 states permitting nitrogen hypoxia as an alternative to traditional capital punishment methods. The use of this method has faced criticism for being experimental and potentially causing undue pain and danger for the condemned and others present in the execution chamber. The United Nations experts have raised concerns about the potential for severe suffering during execution by pure nitrogen inhalation, emphasizing the lack of scientific evidence to suggest otherwise. On Thursday, Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, dismissed reports suggesting that President Biden is contemplating the use of executive authority to tackle the issues at the southern border, characterizing them as, quote, election year gimmicks. Various media outlets had indicated on Wednesday that President Biden, despite previous White House assertions that he had exhausted unilateral measures on the border, is exploring potential actions to restrict migrants' asylum-seeking capabilities in the United States. For months, Johnson has been urging Biden to utilize his executive authority to improve border conditions, including a December letter that urged immediate actions within the existing immigration laws to curb the existing flow of illegal immigration. In response to this week's reports, Johnson raised questions about Biden's commitment to addressing the border situation, The Hill reported. An administration official informed The Hill that the Biden administration is considering, quote, a series of policy options, but has not reached a final decision. Throughout his tenure as Speaker, Johnson has grappled with the challenge of addressing the southern border situation, often finding himself at odds with Biden and the Senate. Despite conservative pleas for Biden to utilize executive authority, the president and White House officials have previously maintained that all available options had been exhausted.